This is my Swedish M94 14 carbine. The Swedes did things a bit backwards. They adopted a Mauser carbine as their first smokeless rifle, then 2 years later followed it up by adopting a standard long rifle. In some ways, the Swedish M96 can be thought of as a long carbine, instead of most carbines being considered short and long rifles. My carbine here was built by Carl Gustafs in 1907. The first few thousand were produced by Mauser Oberndorf and are considered antiques, which is unique for such a modern feeling rifle. And it still bears its original unit marking disc. But the history of this rifle isn't the focus of today's video. At the front end, the bayonet bar on the underside of the stock was added while the carbine was in service in 1914. And this muzzle extension isn't original either. It was added sometime in the 1950s or 60s when these rifles were being imported into the US in great numbers. Its purpose was to extend the barrel's length just past the legal minimum required for import, which at the time was 18 inches. That's different from the legal minimum for short-barreled rifles, which is 16 inches. I added 2 marks to this cleaning rod, one at 17 inches and one at 18. I'll feed it down the bore until it bottoms out on the breech face of the closed bolt. You can see here that the 18-inch mark is fully covered. The muzzle extension is only about 4/10 of an inch long. The true barrel length is around 17.7 inches, hence why the extension was required for import to bring it just past 18 inches. If it wasn't here, the barrel would protrude just a hair past the nose cap. You can see that the inside diameter is much larger than the 6.5mm bore. With a light, I can just make out the end of the true barrel. But if I didn't know any better and tried to gauge the bore condition by using the old bullet trick, I'd think that there was something wrong here. So with the barrel extension being added solely for import purposes, I want to remove it. Although, in a way, the extension is part of this rifle's history, I could see an argument made to leave it as is. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But here on my rifle, I'm removing it. I'll start by disassembling. With the carbine disassembled, you can see the line where the extension was attached. I was able to remove the nose cap easily, but if you have one of these, you should be careful. Sometimes the extensions are slightly misaligned, or the filler material not ground enough, and you could break the nose cap or the bayonet bar trying to remove it. You can hear that mine is fairly tight still, but it does come off, and that's with no outside signs that the extension was poorly fit. Now, how do I remove it? From researching, they are welded on, so I can't melt it off as if it were soldered on. The only way then is to cut it off. But before I start, I'll remove the bolt. Then run a cleaning rod until it's just short of the muzzle. This will prevent the barrel from filling with chips. Then I'm ready to start cutting. I'll cut away from the weld so as to not damage the crown, which I want to leave untouched. While I cut this off and eventually file it smooth, I want to add that if anyone is following these steps, you should be absolutely sure of what type of muzzle extension you have before cutting. Mine here is the simplest version, as shown by the blue barrel and the red extension butted up against it. You can see the original crown here. If the crown on yours is deeper, then the extension is attached in a different way. Those had the barrel counterbored, and then the extension pressed in. Sometimes they were also welded in place. But with this type of extension, removing it would result in the counterbore being very visible. As I file, I'm being very careful to remove the extension material only, and not file into the barrel. I want to preserve the original crown as much as possible. You can see here that the crown is untouched. Only about 2/3 of the barrel's thickness has been touched by the file. That's because the end of the barrel is slightly dome-shaped. I'll round over the outside edge next. I'm done filing and sanding, which means I can remove the chips from the barrel. Even though only the last inch or so had chips in it, I'll run a few more patches down the board to ensure that it's perfectly clean. The last thing to do is to blue the end of the barrel. A small area like this is one of the few cases where cold blue is a good solution. I'll start by thoroughly degreasing the metal using brake cleaner. Then I'll give it just a bit of heat. And then I'll apply the solution. After about a minute, I'll clean it off with cold water. Then fine steel wool. And finally some oil. Cold blue isn't the best or the most durable finish, but it will hold oil to prevent rust. Next, I'll reassemble the rifle. That's the carbine complete once again. The lack of the extension is a minor change to its appearance, but it does bring it back to the state in which it served in the Swedish Army. Previously, the bayonet lug and the muzzle extension looked almost the same, since they were approximately the same shape, diameter, and length. But now, I think it looks a lot better with the bayonet lug protruding out past everything else. The bayonet looks like it's almost hanging off of the rifle, much more so than any other bayonet attachment I've seen. Again, the removal of the muzzle extension is a very small change, but I think it does look better than it did before. With that, thanks for watching.